going to be talking about Invincible, or more specifically, why it's a half-baked masterpiece. Invincible is known for spinning superheroes slightly differently. Much like The Boys, Invincible goes for a more realistic and gruesome approach to what heroing is actually supposed to look like. The first season of the show was absolutely phenomenal, but the second season was kind of ass. And in an attempt to understand why, we're going to go back to season 1 so that we can understand what season 1 did that season 2 did not. Initially, this show starts off as a generic hero plot that parodies superheroes such as Black Man, T-posing Lantern, and Superman. Like a lot of Supermen. The first episode kind of lures you into a false sense of security because the pacing's kind of slow. You're kind of thinking, well, this is kind of just like a generic superhero show. Mark in the first episode gets his powers and is super eager to start being a hero just like his father. And we even got a pretty wholesome training session with his father, all things considered. What could possibly go wrong?
So no.
Holy fuck. But why? Why did Omni-Man just decide to send the Guardians to the Shadow Realm? Well, whatever the reason, this sets the tone for the rest of the show. As a result, no matter what is currently happening, we're still thinking about at all times, why the fuck did Omni-Man decide to randomly kill the Guardians? And when is he randomly gonna just like turn psychotic like that again and maybe do something else? I mean, we know that Omni-Man is a father, we know that he's a superhero, but we also know that he's a cold-blooded killer. Something I would like to note is how Invincible in season 1 manages to handle its plot lines really, really well. What I mean by that is that Invincible has a ton of different plot lines going on, like plotline A, B, C, and even a D plotline, and they technically still have more going on than that, but those are the only real plot lines where all of them, by the end of season 1, need to connect in some way, and they need to land on their 2 feet, otherwise the entire season's doomed. The A plot being the typical Mark's hero journey, the B plot being the Guardians and their new developments and learning how to be a new team and all that cool stuff. Plot C revolves around the investigations around the Guardians' murder, aka them basically just trying to figure out, wait, wasn't it just Omni-Man that killed him? But the funny thing is that legit nobody, and I mean nobody, was able to figure it out. At least not with any evidence, except Debbie. Debbie actually figured it out with evidence. I mean, seriously, the demon guy was like, okay, so somebody needed to be strong enough to kill all these heroes. Omni-Man was strong enough to kill all these heroes. And also Omni-Man was the only one left alive. Must have been the wind. Well, to his credit, he did kind of figure it out, but it was more off of a hunch over anything else, and he didn't have any actual evidence. And as a result, Cecil sent him to the backshot chambers. See, I'll pay my compliments to plot A, B, and C, but plot D is a little bit weird. Because on one hand, it does manage to produce a really good result, and that is the revival of Immortal, which does prove to be really significant for the plot. But the main purpose of plot D was to basically give the robot guy a human body. But as of now, that still doesn't have like any significant plot relevance. I mean, nothing besides the weird 25-year-old in a 14-year-old's body who wants to date a 30-year-old in another 14's body plot couldn't possibly be pertaining to anything, right? I swear I could make an entire ass rant just about like people that will say, oh my god, so technically she isn't 14, she's actually 9,000 years old. And most of all, getting the absolute shit beaten out of him. Now we gotta get into the main juicy part of this plot line first, and that is the relationship drama. I'm just gonna flat out say it. Amber is trash, and nobody can convince me otherwise. She has zero chemistry with Mark, and the funny thing is that she would be justified in being pissed off at Mark for running off on his own if she didn't already know that Mark was a superhero? She acts like there's literally no excuse for bro running off when he has literally the most valid excuse in the world. And also, it's in her direct benefit. If Mark didn't happen to be a superhero in that situation, they would have been fucked. If she didn't know the entire time, then I can understand her being upset about it. But then she basically reveals, oh, well, I actually knew the whole time because I'm so freaking smart. And then she tries to justify it by saying, oh, well, you don't trust me enough to have me handle your identity. Bro, what? It's a secret identity. Y'all have been dating for like, what? 5 months at this point? Now, I'm not saying Mark is completely in the right, but the show tries to paint Mark as if he's completely in the wrong. Between Eve just calling Mark a dick for stringing her along, and William being like, oh yeah, you're such a dick, Mark. Which I'd honestly have to agree with, because why is Mark still with her? They have zero chemistry and bonding outside of season 2, and in all honesty, bro has 100 times more chemistry with Eve. If he were to date anybody, it would be her. But in my humble opinion, I don't think that would work either, because their relationship dynamic is a lot more of a platonic and close friend relationship than what I would consider to be like a partnership, like a romantic relationship. If you wanted to actually get on the subject of Mark being a dick, then you just have to look to William. Ironically, while Mark is trying to relocate his dinger into Amber's yes chambers, William sends a distress signal, basically telling Mark ahead of time, hey, so Rick's kind of been missing. Do you want to help me find him? But Mark, because he's going through his pissy arc of, oh, woe is me, I'm not a good superhero, I would only make shit worse. And so he's just like, you know what, William? You got all that. Just go find Rick. You'll be fine. And it only takes when William shows Mark on video of him literally being kidnapped before Mark's like, okay, fine, I guess I'll go help you. I mean, so much for bros before hoes. I mean, god damn. Now, something quickly I'd like to mention about the show is that I actually really like how none of the characters feel one-dimensional. I mean, even Eve's dad doesn't feel one-dimensional. Now, don't get me wrong, Eve's dad is an absolute dick. However, he does actually show signs of genuinely caring for his daughter. He does show signs of genuinely caring for his daughter. And like any characters, he also has flaws. Now, I'm not gonna make an entire deconstructing analysis video about Eve's fucking father, but the point is that even a side character such as Eve's dad has like significant character depth and isn't just one-dimensional. But I will say one more thing. The one most consistent piece of garbage throughout the entirety of season 1 is this. What? What is this? Why do you choose to specifically hang the left flap of your freaking shirt for all to see? How is your drip model to always show that you cannot tuck in your damn shirt? Do you not realize how much fatherless energy you are resonating right now? Wait. Just watch the Avengers and you'll understand the Guardians' relationship dynamic. The blue guys that escaped prison got a cloning machine. Now, why or how they got the cloning machine, or why they're even smart enough to be able to make and operate this entire cloning machine in the first place is left a mystery, but I guess it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Now, the plotline here is something that I mentioned earlier. Basically, these guys want to work on the robot guy's human body. Or more specifically, they get sidetracked into doing that while they're trying to revive Immortal. Now, at first, this isn't a very clear plotline that's going on, because for the first half of it, the robot guy is kind of mysteriously lurking around, just like getting blood samples, visiting his old body, which we don't know is his old body at this point, and overall just doing like some weird, suspicious activity. Now, I mentioned the part of this plotline that did have a long-lasting effect was Immortal, and the reason why this is really prevalent is because ever since episode 1, it was foreshadowed that Immortal could have been brought back to life. Unfortunately for me, I saw a lot of memes about Invincible before I watched the show, so it wasn't really a big surprise when Immortal came back to life because, I mean, I've seen like way too many clips of the show. But in my personal opinion, I think bringing back Immortal was actually a really good story choice. Now, whether it was intentional or on purpose, I'm not really gonna focus on that. What I'm gonna focus on is what could have happened if they just decided not to. Sure, you could have had the alternative plotline where Mark and his father defeat the Beast, and then his father basically tries to convince Mark to join the Viltrumite Empire. However, I think something that people forget is that Omni-Man is actually a pretty great manipulator. I mean, he managed to lie about his entire identity for about 20 plus years, despite dudes like Alan just casually floating around knowing about it the entire time. And maybe this could tie into season 2 and the multiverse theory. Maybe it could tie into why evil versions of Mark even exist in the first place. Maybe if Immortal didn't step in, Mark wouldn't have seen the brutal and just absolutely heartless and destructive nature of his father. Maybe simply not seeing that part of him would have actually convinced Mark just enough to actually get roped in to being an evil Invincible. And yeah, maybe I'm reaching a little bit, maybe just a little bit, but I think Mark just being explicitly shown what Omni-Man is capable of is a really good way to explicitly paint the picture in Mark's mind. Yeah, my father is a killer. Alright, now this plotline is pretty straightforward, but it doesn't really happen a lot on screen. It's mostly happening off screen, but it basically just revolves around the investigations of Omni-Man and basically the murder of the Guardians, so just Omni-Man, really. Something that I really like about this plotline is that as early as episode 2, Debbie is picking up on red flags from Omni-Man. She notices that once Mark has gotten his powers, Omni-Man is acting a bit different. Also,
fuck you, Nolan.
she is the fucking GOAT. Most of these plot lines are really good on their own, but what a lot of shows have struggled to do these days is learn how to land those plot lines, learn how to tie in all those plot lines together so nothing feels cheapened, nothing feels left out on, and everything feels fully fleshed out. Now, luckily, Invincible for season 1 happens to be the exception to this. It does a damn good job at tying all the plot lines together. The way that they revealed Omni-Man, just absolute 10 out of 10, would not change it. And also the realistic take on the hero's journey, how Mark didn't just learn some technique or go on some training arc in order to eventually take down the looming threat that was Omni-Man throughout the entire season. To be quite frank, Mark got fucked by Omni-Man, straight backshotted. I'm just saying, if Mark didn't convince Omni-Man to change his ways, Earth would be fucked. But Mark showed that being a true hero isn't just about the powers that you have to do what's good. It's also about having the courage to stand up and fight, even when you don't have the strength to. And it's through this perseverance and stubbornness and the literal cost of hundreds of lives that Mark is able to convince his father to no longer be a cold-blooded killer. Despite being beat down over and over and over again, he still managed to get through to his father to transform him from a absolutely ruthless, non-caring person to someone who's currently sympathetic about the fact that he is beating the absolute dog bricks out of his son. And for a moment, he tries to go back to his Viltrumite instincts, but damage is already done. To summarize, season 1 had a great plot, great characters, and I didn't even mention anything about the music or the animation. It's like, oh my god, look at this thing, I'm gonna buy. With season 1 having done an absolutely spectacular job, season 2 has some pretty big shoes to fill. Now, realistically, I thought the first 2 episodes of season 2 would probably drag a little bit, and it would kind of makes sense because the story needs to figure out where to pick up the pieces. And also, maybe 2-episode buffer isn't all that bad. I mean, they probably need some downtime after all the craziness that's happened within season 1, and then it would just go back to being just as good as before. Well, in the first episode, they introduce the multiverse. Why? Now listen, I know it supposedly ties into Mark's character arc and basically forces him to kill somebody that he otherwise wouldn't have to, going against his moral code because the guy was pissed off at an evil Mark from another dimension. But it's multiverse. Why are we getting a multiverse in season 2? We'll get back to that subject a little bit later, but let's focus on the pacing. The first 2 episodes are basically spent doing a typical slice of life, dicking around without anything of plot relevance happening, all the way until episode 3. And what happens in episode 3 is that Alan gets ambushed by a bunch of Viltrumites and fucking dies. I'm gonna be real though, I was marathoning the show at like 2 o'clock in the morning with a buddy of mine, and I was already bored with the season up until this point, so I kind of conked the fuck out during the scene. But don't worry, I did rewatch the show for the sake of this video. Okay, there isn't parts missing from my commentary just because I conked the fuck out. Now, Mark gets called on another one of his irrelevant side quest ass missions until it's revealed that it is actually relevant to the plot. Holy fuck. It's Mark and Omni-Man's first interaction since season 1. I mean, what's gonna happen? Is Omni-Man gonna like come to the good side? Is Omni-Man like, is he like changed for the better? The bug. What the fuck? Oh, and he gets kidnapped. Damn.
Read my books, Mark.
On what? How to have with a freaking bug? Oh, and you wanna know what else? After all this bullshit, they go back to dicking around. More slice of life bullshit. Oh look, a plot line where Donald dies 39 times and is having a PTSD mental breakdown featuring Rick and William. This dude had like 3 lines in season 1 and had majority of his plot relevance in fighting Omni-Man and dying. And now you're telling me that he's just gonna take up a whole ass plot line in season 2? Now look, the conclusion to this plot line is pretty alright. I do enjoy it. But why should we even care about this in the first place? I mean, I literally fell asleep for this part too. But what long-lasting impact does this have on the plot? I mean, come on. The fact that I fell asleep like 3 times watching season 2 and I still had no trouble figuring out the main plot that was actually going on is actually ridiculous. How is there this much useless filler content that I just randomly conked out? Wake up. Oh yeah, I still understand what's happening. That makes no sense. Anyway, when does the show pick up again? Halfway through episode 7? So you're telling me I could have watched a whole ass Madagascar movie in the time it took for the show to get its shit together? Okay, well, at least now we're back on track, thank God. Anissa is a Viltrumite who is genuinely intimidating. I mean, she almost eliminates the worst character in the show and is said to be even faster than Omni-Man, which is quite scary. Okay, side tangent. I know that they changed Amber's personality for the 2nd season, but she still has 0 chemistry with Mark. And honestly, I do fully agree that he and Amber should no longer be together in a relationship. So please, for the love of God, keep that as a permanent plotline. Do not make them get back together again. Please? Okay, thank you. Anissa is a unique Viltrumite in the fact that she doesn't try to immediately kill Mark. She's actually quite reasonable and actually brings up some compelling arguments against Mark that low-key makes him fold like an omelet. I mean, she just has bro stumbling over his words, just re-quoting his no-kill code like it's a freaking Bible verse. Now, the reason why I said she didn't immediately beat the shit out of Mark is because she does beat the shit out of Mark after trying to talk with him for a little bit. But a part of me wonders if she's actually stronger than Omni-Man, because did you see that punch? She really said, "I'm about to send you to Jesus, boy," making bro have to replace his goggles for like the literal 1,000th time at this point. Another side tangent. The only consistent plot line that I actually like going on is Debbie's mourning over the loss of a 20-year-long relationship. Now, something I don't think it's highlighted in media enough is how long it actually takes to get over something like that. And I think it's actually a good thing that they linger on it for a little bit because it actually shows how significant of an impact Omni-Man had on Debbie. And it's not just an issue that could just be fixed overnight. She can't just find another person. She can't just find, I don't know, something to just immediately fill that void in her life. Now, something I didn't like is how the other Viltrumites, despite being trained for probably way longer than Mark, are kind of obsolete. I mean, with the dudes that were sent to get Omni-Man, a top-ranking Viltrumite, Mark was able to at least put up a really damn good fight or even kill some of them. On one hand, it's good for showing how Mark has evolved as a character and has gotten stronger over time, but on the other, it diminishes how strong the Viltrumites actually are. And I worry that Mark becoming too strong too quickly will lead to the Viltrumites kind of becoming obsolete too early in the series, and then the author is going to be in some dilemma where it's like, oh no, now that the Viltrumites are obsolete, we have to figure out some way to either upscale the Viltrumites or we're going to have to introduce a new threat entirely. Anissa was a smaller scale example of how they could scale up the Viltrumites, but I think a bigger one might be the Captain. Now see, I'm only theorizing this because I don't actually know, but I have a feeling that he's probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest Viltrumite out there currently. Now I don't have any data or manga panels to back this up, so anybody in the comments can prove me wrong, but I'm hoping that's the case, because if Omni-Man is the strongest Viltrumite, that's not good. I mean, I suppose they could just have like all the Viltrumites invade Earth all at once and make it some sort of like really big battle with Mark, Alan, and then Omni-Man just like gathering as much people up as possible to resist the Viltrumite Empire. But the issue with this is that there's likely to be a lot less people that are willing to stand up to the Viltrumite Empire and therefore will be outnumbered. And if they're outnumbered, they're gonna have to be significantly stronger than all the Viltrumites just to have a chance of surviving. Now, I'm aware this is a pretty extreme side rant, given that I said this basically just because Mark beat the shit out of some old lady. But if this is not addressed now, God knows what could happen in the future. Now I'm going to talk about the main payoff of Season 2, Angstrom Levi. Initially, this guy is presented as a character that genuinely wants to do good for the world in the reality where Mark is evil. When he travels to the main timeline, he obviously encounters the actually good Mark, and long story short, Mark starts getting the shit beaten out of him as is programmed. But Levi sacrifices himself in order to save Mark because he doesn't want to build a utopia out of blood, which is honestly quite admirable for a villain. However, this is the part where it gets messy because the machine ends up malfunctioning, the guy ends up surviving, and now his brain is simultaneously bringing in all the thoughts from all the other multiverses where Mark was evil, and Levi just starts getting like PTSD from like literally everything going on. And as a result, from having all these memories overflowing in his brain all at the same time, it makes him a really unstable and dangerous villain because his motivations and intentions can literally change in any given moment. And this is catapulted to 1,000% when he goes after Mark's mom, which is also tied directly into Mark trying not to be like Omni-Man. However, Mark ends up needing to piece this guy up through sheer emotional rage, much like his father. Now, in all honesty, I can't blame him. I honestly think Mark should give a free pass to this kid, because if somebody did that to my mom, the feed is getting ran. Oh, also, Alan has revived, gets a Zenkai boost, and basically gets kidnapped by the Viltrumite Empire to save Omni-Man. I thought I'd mention that because it could be a potential plotline in the future, but currently it's only in its birthing stage at the very end of the season. So Season 2 had a lot to live up to from Season 1, but I still believe in the potential for Invincible to get back on track and continue being the amazing show I know it is. They just need to lock in and focus on what makes their show great and build upon that before it is too late. Thanks for watching.